A violent storm was approaching, its dark clouds looming over the city like a grim warning. The streets, usually full of life, were now deserted, with the wind howling like a lament. In a small temporary shelter, Sujin, a woman with tired eyes and a soul marked by loss, huddled in a corner, her mind struggling against memories that haunted her. Time had been cruel, and she remembered the last time she saw her daughter, Yuna, a spark of joy and hope in such a cold world. At that moment, a man in an expensive suit, Jung-ho, hurried by, unaware of the impact his life would have on hers. He was a millionaire who always cared more about business than the life around him. Seeing Sujin, he hesitated for a moment, his eyes passing over her, as if he could feel the pain she exuded. But soon, the urgency of his commitment pulled him away. The rain began to fall, weighing on the lost souls in the city. Sujin looked up at the sky and made a silent wish, as she always did when loneliness consumed her. "Please bring my daughter back," she murmured to herself, a lament that echoed in the emptiness. Jung-ho, now sheltered in a nearby cafe, watched through the window. Something about that woman intrigued him. There was a strength in her gaze that challenged him to look closer. With an impulse he didn't understand, he stood up and left the cafe, the torrential rain soaking his suit. As he approached Sujin, she looked up, surprised. "Are you lost?" she asked, her voice trembling, as if she were drifting away from a dream. Jung-ho hesitated, searching for words that seemed appropriate but never came. Instead, he simply shook his head, feeling the weight of the pain that surrounded her. "Do you need help?" he questioned, empathy blooming from a deep place within him. Sujin smiled faintly, a gesture that mixed gratitude and sadness. "Help is rare, but I'm not here to ask for it." She looked down, her hands intertwined, and the truth of her situation became clearer. She was adrift, without a home. "I'm just looking for a safe place to rest." And so, the connection between them began to form, not as a mere encounter, but as a moment that would change the course of their lives. Jung-ho, feeling drawn to the untold story that Sujin carried, decided to offer her temporary shelter in his home, not knowing that this decision would lead him on a journey of self-discovery and redemption. As they walked together in the rain, each step they took became a symbol of hope. The storm, which once seemed a harbinger of disaster, was now transforming into a backdrop for the creation of a new story. However, Jung-ho did not know that the true challenge was yet to come, a test that would force him to confront his past and his choices. What he did not imagine was that the connection with Sujin would lead him to discover secrets that would change everything he knew about love, loss, and family. Jung-ho's house, an elegant mansion in the heart of the city, was a reflection of his successful life, modern, imposing, and empty. He had always believed that money could buy happiness, but at that moment, he felt more alone than ever. Upon opening the door for Sujin, he realized that this woman could bring new meaning to his home. As she entered, Sujin encountered a luxurious but coldly impersonal decor. The walls were adorned with expensive paintings, but the absence of human warmth was palpable. Jung-ho offered her a comfortable sofa, but he couldn't shake the restlessness he felt. "I can prepare something for you to eat," he said, trying to break the ice. "I don't want to be a burden," Sujin replied, her voice soft yet firm. "I just need a place to rest for a while." Jung-ho hesitated, the desire to help her growing within him. He stepped away to the kitchen, but his thoughts were far away. Sujin's gaze seemed to reveal a lifetime of untold stories, and he wondered if she would ever open up to him. "I know you don't know me, but I'd like to understand more about you," he said, returning to the living room with a glass of water. "What happened? Why were you on the street?" Sujin looked at the glass, her reflection blurred by the water. "My daughter Yuna disappeared a year ago," she began, the pain evident in her voice. "Life became unbearable without her. I was forced to leave my job, and soon I lost everything." Sujin's words were like knives to Jung-ho, each one revealing a facet of the struggle he had never faced. "I'm sorry," he murmured, feeling an urgent need to comfort her. "I can't imagine what you're going through." "You don't have to," she said, a sad smile crossing her face. "You have your own pain. Looking at you, I can see that you carry a weight too." Jung-ho felt exposed. It was true. He had distanced himself from the people he loved in his pursuit of success. The emptiness he felt in life was like an endless echo. "You're right. I'm as lost as you are." A silent connection formed between them, as if each was trying to discover what the other was hiding. He decided he should do something to help her, if only to alleviate his own loneliness. "Sujin, you can stay here as long as you need. You don't have to worry about being a burden." Her eyes lit up, and for a brief moment, Jung-ho felt he had made the right choice. However, he did not know that this choice would lead him into an even more intense emotional storm. The night wore on, and as they talked, an unexpected bond began to form. They started to share their stories, their fears, their hopes. Jung-ho was surprised to realize how Sujin spoke of Yuna, not as a loss, but as a love that still vibrated within her. "I know she is alive somewhere," Sujin said, determination in her eyes. "I can feel it. I can't give up on her." Jung-ho, touched by Sujin's unwavering faith, felt his own life beginning to change. That night, he decided that he would not only help her find her daughter, but also allow himself to rediscover what truly mattered. He wanted to be part of Sujin's story, and with that, perhaps he could rewrite his own life narrative. As the rain continued to fall outside, a new chapter was about to begin, one that would challenge their perceptions of love, loss, and redemption. Days turned into weeks, and Sujin's presence in Jung-ho's home began to create a new routine. He felt more alive than ever, as if her light was illuminating the dark corners of his soul. However, the search for Yuna became a constant shadow between them, and Jung-ho realized he needed to help Sujin in a more active way. One morning, while they were having breakfast, Jung-ho decided to break the silence. "Sujin, have you tried going to the police to report Yuna's disappearance? They might have information." She looked down, her expression heavy with sadness. "I've done that, but I don't feel like they really care. It's like I'm talking to walls." He watched her, realizing that the weight of despair was increasingly present. "What if we searched on our own?" he suggested, the idea blossoming in his mind. "We can ask at schools. In the areas where you used to take her, someone might have seen something." Sujin's eyes sparkled for a moment, but soon hope faded away. "You don't understand. I don't have a place I belong. I have nothing. I can't do this alone." Jung-ho hesitated. He couldn't imagine the pain she carried, but he didn't want to give up on her. "Sujin, you're not alone. I'm here. We'll face this together. I promise I'll help." Her smile, though timid, brought an unexpected warmth to Jung-ho's heart. He felt he was doing the right thing, that this was the chance to rewrite not only Sujin's story, but his own as well. That day, they decided to visit the park where Yuna used to play. As they walked through the green space, Sujin stopped, looking around as if she could feel her daughter's presence. This was her favorite place, she said. Her voice choked. She loved chasing butterflies. Jung-ho watched Sujin as she got lost in memories, his heart tightening. "Do you think she might come back?" he asked, feeling vulnerable. "I need to believe she will," she replied, determination taking over. "I can't lose hope. One day, she might come back to me." As they walked, they encountered a group of children playing on the grass. Their innocent laughter was a painful reminder of the loss Sujin felt. "Sujin, would you like to talk to some mothers?" Jung-ho suggested. "Maybe they've seen Yuna." Sujin nodded, but hesitated. "What if they don't care? What if I'm just another woman desperately trying to find something that can't be found? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you try, and if one of them can help, it would be worth it," Jung-ho encouraged. Hesitantly, Sujin approached a group of mothers watching the children. She began to speak, her voice low but steady. Meanwhile, Jung-ho stood a little aside, admiring her courage. He saw her gesturing, her face marked by hope, and his heart filled with a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time: compassion. After a few minutes, Sujin returned, a mixed look of frustration and sadness on her face. "No one knows anything," she said, her voice choked. "It's like she never existed." Jung-ho felt a tightness in his chest, but quickly remembered his promise. "There are still many places we can check. Let's go to the next one. I'm with you." The journey through the city continued, and each new conversation was an opportunity to find clues. But the search was not just for Yuna. It was also a quest to heal Sujin's emotional wounds, and, in a way, Jung-ho's as well. He realized that as he helped Sujin to rise again, he was also rising, piece by piece. When night fell, Jung-ho and Sujin returned home, exhausted but determined. With each passing day, the connection between them grew stronger, transforming pain into a driving force. They didn't know what the future held, but for now, they were together on this journey, and that was enough. The following days were marked by an increasing camaraderie between Jung-ho and Sujin, uniting them in an unrelenting search for Yuna. With every new corner of the city they explored, hope and pain intertwined, deepening the connection between them. Jung-ho became more than just a friend. He became an anchor amid the emotional storm Sujin faced. On a sunny morning, while they were in the kitchen, Sujin was focused on preparing breakfast, and Jung-ho decided to do something special. He wanted to cheer her up. "How about we do something different today? A picnic in the park?" he suggested while beating the eggs. Her face lit up, but soon a shadow of doubt crossed her eyes. "What if I can't have fun? What if I can't stop thinking about Yuna? Let's take a picture of her with us. That way, she'll always be by our side," Jung-ho replied, holding a hopeful smile. He knew that a light moment could help Sujin remember the joy Yuna brought to their lives. Sujin hesitated, but eventually agreed. Together, they prepared for the picnic, bringing sandwiches, fruits, and, of course, the photo of Yuna. Upon arriving at the park, the light and vibrant atmosphere around them was a striking contrast to the weight that Sujin carried. As they sat on a blanket spread out under the shade of a leafy tree, Jung-ho looked at Sujin. "Do you remember when Yuna used to play here? The way she would chase after the butterflies?" "Yes, she always said she wanted to be a butterfly." Sujin smiled at the memory, her eyes sparkling. Jung-ho began to draw on the ground with a stick, creating figures of butterflies. "Then we can help her fly back to you," he joked, trying to bring a little lightness to the conversation. Sujin's laughter was a balm for his heart. However, a pang of sadness followed her like a shadow. What if she doesn't come back? What if I never know what happened? Jung-ho felt the weight of the question. Soo-jin, you're doing everything you can, and I'll be here by your side, no matter what happens. Remember, each day is a new opportunity. At that moment, a woman approached them, interrupting the conversation. She had a curious look and an expression of concern. Sorry to interrupt, but I heard you talking about your daughter. I'm Han-suk. I work at a local school. Did you mention that your daughter is missing? Soo-jin sat up straight, her heart racing. Yes, Yuna, she disappeared months ago. Han-suk looked at the picture of Yuna that Soo-jin held tenderly. I know a girl who looked like her. She used to come to the park. One day she was with a man. I remember because he looked different, like he didn't belong here. The air around them seemed to grow heavy with tension. Young-ho turned to Soo-jin, who was frozen in anticipation. Can you remember any more details? He asked, his voice full of urgency. Han-suk frowned, trying to organize her thoughts. He was a tall man, with dark hair. I didn't know him, but the girl looked scared. They were talking near the benches, and then she left with him. I just remember it didn't feel right. Soo-jin felt her heart race. Did you see where they went? No, I stepped away. But if I find out anything more, I can let you know. Are you looking for her? Han-suk asked, empathy in her voice. Yes, please. If you remember anything, get in touch, Soo-jin replied, her voice trembling with hope. After the woman walked away, Jung-ho looked at Soo-jin. This is a good sign, right? We have a lead. Yes, but what if it's too late? Insecurity washed over her again. We can't think like that. We need to keep searching. Let's check with the schools. Talk to more people, he insisted, feeling that this was the key to something bigger. So, with a renewed purpose, they got up and headed to the place where Han-suk mentioned the girl had been seen. The feeling that each step was bringing them closer to Yuna was like a beacon in the darkness. When night fell, the city felt less oppressive, and hope blossomed once again in Soo-jin's heart. As they looked at the stars, Young-ho turned to her. We're going to find her. I feel it. Soo-jin looked at the stars, and for the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, life could hold a future filled with light and love. The following days were marked by an intense search. Soo-jin and Jung-ho explored every corner of the city, interacting with strangers and distributing flyers with Yuna's picture. The support they found among the people was surprising. Strangers offered help, sharing information and their own stories of overcoming. However, anxiety never left Soo-jin's heart, and the shadow of doubt insisted on keeping her company. One morning, while having coffee at a small diner, Soo-jin spotted a group of children playing in the street. They laughed and ran, and the echo of their joyful voices seemed a reminder of Yuna's innocence. The memory of her daughter brought tears to Soo-jin's eyes, and she felt a wave of despair. What if Yuna is alone? What if she is scared? Jung-ho placed his hand over hers, a simple gesture, but one that brought immense comfort. Soo-jin, she is strong. You raised her that way. No matter where she is still your daughter. We're going to find her. I can't shake the thought that I've lost her forever, Soo-jin confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. We can't think like that. Let's focus on finding clues. There's a fair in the city next weekend. Maybe there we can find more people who know Yuna or even find her, Jung-ho suggested, trying to reignite the flame of hope. The fair promised to be vibrant, filled with music, food, and people. Soo-jin hesitated, but the idea of joining the crowd made her feel that she could, at least for a day, escape the constant pain. Let's go. I can't let fear paralyze me. On the day of the fair, the sun shone brightly, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The colorful stalls offered a variety of food, crafts, and toys. Cheerful music echoed around, and for a brief moment, Sujin felt enveloped in a bubble of joy. But soon reality pulled her back, reminding her of Yuna's absence. As they walked through the fair, Young-ho noticed a red balloon floating up toward the sky. He pulled Sujin, pointing at the balloon. "Look, red is Yuna's favorite color. Shall we make a wish?" Sujin smiled, even though the pain was still present. They bought a balloon and moved away from the hustle and bustle, stopping in a quiet corner. "What are you going to wish for?" Young-ho asked, holding the balloon firmly. "That Yuna comes back to me," Sujin replied, her voice choked with emotion. Jong-ho also made his wish silently, feeling the gravity of the situation. He released the balloon, watching it rise until it became a small red dot in the blue sky. Sujin's heart tightened, a mixed feeling of hope and sadness. As they continued walking, Sujin noticed a tent that looked different from the others, with a sign that said, "Palm and Card Reading." Curiosity pushed her to enter. Inside the tent, an elderly woman with silver hair and penetrating eyes was waiting. "We are looking for my daughter," Sujin said, unsure if she should tell everything to a stranger. But something in the woman's expression encouraged her. "She disappeared months ago." The woman nodded, her gaze shifting as if she were reading not just the words, but also the pain in Sujin's heart. "Sit down. I can show you what the cards have to say." Sujin hesitated, but the need for answers was stronger. She sat in an old wooden chair while the woman began to shuffle the cards. "Tell me your daughter's name." "Yuna," Sujin replied, her voice almost a whisper. The woman pulled out some cards and spread them on the table. "Life is full of unexpected paths. Your daughter is in a place where the light shines, but also where there are shadows. She is not alone." The woman's words penetrated Sujin like a ray of hope. "What do you mean by shadows?" "There are people protecting her, but there are also dangers. You need to be strong and not give up. The search for her will bring answers. Talk to those who have seen her and trust your heart," the woman advised, her eyes full of wisdom. Sujin felt a wave of emotion. "I will do whatever it takes. I need to find her." When they left the tent, the daylight seemed more intense, and the world around them felt vibrant with new possibilities. Jung-ho looked at Sujin, noticing the change in her demeanor. "What happened in there?" "She said Yuna is alive, and that we have to keep searching," Sujin said, hope reborn in her heart. "Then let's do it," Jung-ho replied, determined. "Let's go back and talk to more people. Something tells me we're about to find new clues." And so, driven by the promise of a better future, Sujin and Jung-ho left the fair with renewed determination that the search for Yuna was not just a mission, but a path of love that brought them closer together. The sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink as Sujin and Jung-ho walked through the city streets. The energy that had once seemed depleted now pulsed within them. The visit to the fortune teller had awakened a new hope, a spark they didn't want to let fade. "We should start in the areas where Yuna used to play," Jung-ho suggested, his eyes alert, watching every face and gesture that passed by. "Many children tend to gather near the school, and maybe someone has seen something." Sujin agreed. "Yes, let's start there. Even if we don't have much information, we need to try." When they arrived at the school, the courtyard was empty, but the place still felt vibrant with Yuna's laughter and play. Sujin paused for a moment, enveloped by the memory of her daughter playing there. She had always been a lively child, full of dreams. The thought tightened her heart, but she quickly reminded herself of the mission they were on. "Let's try to talk to some of the teachers," Jung-ho said, breaking the silence. They might have seen or heard something. They entered the school and headed to the principal's office. A middle-aged woman with brown hair and worried eyes received them. "How can I help you?" the principal asked, noticing the tension in Soo-jin and Jung-ho's expressions. "We are looking for my daughter, Yuna. She disappeared a few months ago," Soo-jin explained, her voice trembling but firm. "We are trying to find out if anyone has seen her or knows anything." The principal nodded, her gaze softening. "I'm so sorry to hear that. Unfortunately, I don't have specific information, but we can talk to the teachers and students. I can arrange a meeting." After a few hours, the meeting was set, and several teachers gathered in the classroom. Soo-jin sat at the front, nervous, but determined to make the most of this opportunity. Each teacher, one by one, shared stories and memories about Yuna, and Soo-jin realized how much her daughter was loved. "She was a bright student," said one of the teachers, an elderly man with a gentle smile, always willing to help her classmates. "I remember once she organized a group to clean up the community park. A girl with a big heart." Soo-jin smiled, proud but also pained. "Did you see anyone strange around here? Someone who might have caught Yuna's attention?" The teachers exchanged glances. "There was an incident a few months ago before Yuna disappeared. A strange man was seen in the area. He seemed to be watching the children, but we weren't sure if he was really threatening anyone. The authorities were informed, but we never found this man." Soo-jin's heart raced. "Could you describe this man? Any characteristics?" One of the younger teachers intervened. He had a disheveled appearance, messy hair, and often wore a dark jacket. "I don't know if that helps, but it might be a clue." "Thank you. That's helpful," Jung-ho said, looking at Soo-jin, who was silent, absorbing the information. After the meeting, Soo-jin and Jung-ho left the school. "This could be a lead," Jung-ho said. "We need to find out who this man was." "Yes," Soo-jin replied, determined. "But we also need to check if the police are still investigating." They decided to go to the local police station. When they arrived, they were greeted by an officer who seemed bored. But upon hearing their story, his expression changed. "We are aware of Yuna's disappearance, and her description aligns with a few others we have received. The man you mentioned is known to frequent the area. We are trying to locate more information about him," the police officer said. "Did you find anything?" Soo-jin asked, hope renewed in her eyes. "We are analyzing the reports and the security cameras in the area. This may take time, but we will update you as soon as we have news," the officer replied, noting down their phone numbers. Soo-jin and Jung-ho left the police station with a mix of hope and anxiety. "It seems like we are closer, but it's still so far away," Soo-jin murmured. "We can't give up," Jung-ho said, holding her hand. "And in the meantime, we will keep investigating." They decided to visit the park where Yuna had shown up for the cleanup group. It was a familiar and safe place, and perhaps they could find more witnesses or clues. Upon arriving, they observed children playing and families enjoying the day. "If Yuna is still around, we should find her," Soo-jin said, her heart racing. As they walked through the park, they came across a group of children playing with a ball. Soo-jin approached, hesitantly. "Hi, do you know a girl named Yuna?" The curious looks of the children turned to her. A girl with braids raised her hand. "Yes, she played with us once, but we haven't seen her in a while." Soo-jin's heart raced. "Do you remember when that was?" "Yes, it was months ago. She was really happy. Then she didn't come anymore, the girl replied, her expression sad. Young-ho intervened, trying to gather more information. Did you see anything strange back then? Anyone who shouldn't have been here? Once we saw a man sitting on a bench. He was just watching. And then Yuna disappeared, the girl said, her eyes wide. Sujin felt a chill run down her spine. It was the same man that the school principal had mentioned. Thank you, dear. That helps a lot, Sujin said, forcing a smile. As they walked away from the group of children, Young-ho looked at Sujin, sensing her anxiety. We are on the right track. We need to keep going. With every conversation, every detail, we are getting closer to finding her. Sujin nodded, determined. Yes, we will find Yuna. I won't give up on her. And so with hearts full of hope and renewed determination, Sujin and Jung-ho moved forward, ready to face any challenges that came their way. Night fell over the city, wrapping everything in a cloak of darkness. Sujin and Jung-ho decided to meet at her house to discuss the information they had gathered so far. The tension was palpable in the air, but there was also a spark of hope illuminating their tired faces. Sujin prepared a cup of tea for both of them, while Jung-ho reviewed the notes he had made. The descriptions of the man are very similar. We need to find out who he is. This could be the key to finding her, Jung-ho said, his eyes fixed on the yellowed page. I can't get this out of my head, Sujin replied, her voice trembling. What if Yuna is in danger? What if he took her? Fear consumed her, but she knew she couldn't let it paralyze her. We need to act fast. Tomorrow, I'm going back to the station to see if there's any update on the man we're looking for. And maybe it's time we start asking around on the streets. Perhaps someone has seen something, Jung-ho suggested. I agree. We need to be cautious, but we can't miss any opportunity, Sujin responded, her spirit resolute. With the plan set, Sujin and Jung-ho spent the night awake, discussing every lead, every detail that could lead to Yuna. Hope was within reach, but doubts and fears were still constant companions. The next day, after a night of little sleep, Jung-ho headed to the station again. Meanwhile, Sujin decided to visit the park where the children had mentioned the mysterious man. She needed to know more. Upon arriving, the atmosphere seemed calm, but her mind was in turmoil. As she walked, Sujin spotted a group of mothers chatting. With a slight tremor in her hand, she approached them. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm looking for my daughter, Yuna. She disappeared a few months ago, and I'm trying to find out if anyone saw anything, she explained, her voice heavy with emotion. One of the mothers, with blonde hair and blue eyes, looked at Sujin with compassion. I'm sorry, I haven't seen your daughter, but I heard rumors about a strange man who appeared in the area. He seemed to be following children. Sujin felt her heart tighten. Can you give me more details? Any information could be helpful. Yes, of course. He was always wearing a dark jacket and a hat. He never seemed right, like he was always passing through, the mother explained, looking around as if she wanted to make sure no one was listening. Once, some kid said he was talking to a girl. I don't know if it was your daughter, but it's concerning. That's very helpful, thank you, Sujin said, her heart pounding. If you hear anything else, please let me know. As she walked away, panic settled in her mind. Who was this man, and what did he want? She needed answers and knew she couldn't wait any longer. Young-ho, on his part, was at the station, talking to the officer who had noted his number. I would like to know if you found any information about the man who was around here. What did you discover? He asked, anxiety evident in his voice. We are checking the security camera footage, but we don't have much so far. However, we have a description that matches other reports we received from residents. "We are doing our best to find him," the officer replied, his expression serious. "He may have seen something that could help us," Young-ho insisted. "We are willing to do whatever it takes to find Yuna." The police officer looked at him, noticing the determination in his eyes. "I can ask that you remain available. If we discover anything, we will get in touch. We also recommend that you stay alert and avoid direct confrontations. That man could be dangerous." "I understand. I will be on standby," Young-ho replied, feeling a wave of frustration. But he had no time to waste. As soon as he left the police station, he decided to visit the places that Soo-jin had mentioned. As he walked, he thought about the clues and information they had gathered. It was a race against time, and with each passing day, anxiety grew. When they finally met again, Soo-jin and Young-ho exchanged their findings. "I heard about a man who was following children. The descriptions match what you told me about the school," Soo-jin said, her gaze fiery. "We need to do something now. Let's talk to more people and see if we can get concrete information. If that man is on the loose, we can't let him act," Young-ho agreed, determination in his voice. They decided to split up and approach people on the streets. Soo-jin chose to visit the park again, while Jung-ho would search nearby areas. Soo-jin's heart raced with every step, the thought of finding Yuna driving her forward. In the park, Soo-jin began to ask other parents and caregivers about the strange presence of the man. Each answer brought her closer to the truth, but each negative response left her more distressed. After hours of searching, she spotted an elderly woman sitting on a bench watching the children. The woman seemed to know more than she let on. Soo-jin approached, feeling an instant connection. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for my daughter, Yuna. Have you seen her?" Soo-jin asked, her voice full of hope. The woman looked at her closely and, after a moment, shook her head. "I haven't seen her, but I heard about a girl who disappeared. Some children said they saw a strange man talking to her in the park. That was some time ago. Do you remember any details about that man?" Soo-jin asked, anxiety rising. "He had a vacant look, as if he were lost, and I saw him leave quickly in the direction of the road. He didn't seem right." "Don't trust him," the woman warned, her words heavy with concern. Hearing this, Soo-jin felt adrenaline surge. "Where did he go?" "Do you know?" "To the main street, but I don't know where he went after that," the woman replied. Soo-jin thanked her and began to walk, her heart racing. She needed Jung-ho. They were getting closer, and she could feel it. The man was out there, but they were determined to find him, and more importantly, to find Yuna. The next day arrived with a gray and threatening sky, reflecting the anxious atmosphere that hung over Soo-jin and Jung-ho. Both were determined to find Yuna, but now they had a clear focus: the mysterious man who seemed to be at the center of it all. After a quick conversation, they decided it was time to intensify the search. Soo-jin, with the information she had gathered, suggested they investigate the area around the main street, where the man had been seen last. "We can ask more people. Maybe someone has seen something else," she said, a spark of hope in her eyes. Jung-ho agreed, and together they headed toward the main street, prepared to ask questions and gather information. The path was filled with shops and cafes, and life pulsed around them, but worry was constant. Every person passing by seemed like a potential informant, but also a possible distraction. "Let's split up and conquer. I'll go to the right, and you go to the left. We'll meet in half an hour," Jung-ho suggested, determined. Soo-jin nodded, and they went their separate ways. As Soo-jin walked along the sidewalk, she remembered the words of the elderly woman. The man had a vacant look, as if he were lost. That description echoed in her mind as she approached people and handed out flyers with Yuna's photo. "I'm sorry to bother you, but have you seen this girl?" Sujin asked everyone who passed by. Most responded with a shake of the head, but with each no, frustration grew. Each negative response felt like another blow to her heart. After half an hour, Sujin and Young-ho met at a small cafe. Jung-ho looked worried. "I couldn't find anything. Most people were so absorbed in their own lives that they didn't pay attention. And you?" "It was the same for me," Sujin replied, the discouragement weighing in her voice. "But maybe we should try something different. If that man was near the school and at the park, it's possible he frequents places like that. We can try talking to staff at schools or daycare centers. That's a good idea. We can make a list of places he could be. If he's monitoring children, those places would be a good starting point," Jung-ho replied, renewed determination in his tone. They then decided to head to a nearby daycare center where many children spent their day. Upon arriving, they were greeted by a friendly educator who was willing to help. "We're looking for a man who may be related to the disappearance of a girl. Have you seen anyone strange around here?" The educator thought for a moment. "Well, last week, a mother mentioned a man who seemed to be watching the children from outside. He always seemed to be waiting for something or someone. Do you know how to describe that man?" Young-ho asked, eager for more information. He was wearing a dark jacket and had a disturbed look. The mother thought it was just paranoia, but she got scared. The educator said, her expression worried. Sujin and Young-ho exchanged glances. The man was becoming a constant presence in their lives, but they still had no name or face to identify him. "Do you remember what day this happened?" Sujin asked, hope rising again. "I think it was Friday. It was a strange day, and she was nervous. If you want, I can reach out to her and ask her to come here," the educator suggested. "That would be amazing. Any information could be helpful," Jung-ho replied, his voice full of gratitude. As they waited for the mother to arrive, Sujin began to think about the possibilities. Every new detail brought her closer to Yuna, but it also left her more apprehensive. What if he did something to her? She asked aloud, insecurity showing. Jung-ho looked at her with an understanding gaze. "We're going to find her. No matter what happens, we won't give up," he stated, determination evident in his voice. Finally, the mother arrived, visibly nervous. "I'm sorry, I heard you were asking about a man. I'm worried about the kids," she said, looking around as if expecting to see the man at any corner. "Can you tell us what you saw?" Sujin asked, trying to convey calmness. The mother took a deep breath before starting. "I was looking for my son, and I saw him outside. He was standing there, looking at the park. There was something very wrong with him, but I didn't think it was that serious. He made me uncomfortable," she explained, her gaze fixed on Sujin. "Did you get to see his face?" Jung-ho asked, tension rising. "Not much. He was sideways, but he had a distant look, as if he were thinking about something he couldn't understand," the mother replied, fear evident in her voice. Sujin felt a knot in her stomach. The description fit perfectly. "What would you do if you saw him again?" she asked. "I would confront him. I can't let him hurt other children," the mother replied, fear turning into bravery. With that, a plan began to form in Sujin and Jung-ho's minds. If the man was hiding in the shadows, they needed to lure him out. "Maybe we should organize a gathering in the park and see if he shows up," Jung-ho suggested. "If he's watching, he might be tempted to appear." Sujin nodded, her determination reborn. "Let's do it. If he shows up, we might have a chance to find out where Yuna is. The idea was clear, and time was running out. If there was any hope of finding Yuna, they needed to act quickly and face their fears. With the plan in mind, Sujin and Young-ho dedicated the next few days to organizing the gathering in the park. They spread the word through the neighborhood, inviting families and children for a day of fun, without mentioning that their true intention was to attract the mysterious man. Anticipation and nervousness intertwined as the day of the event approached. On the morning of the gathering, the sky was clear, with a radiant sun illuminating the park. Sujin arrived early, her mind buzzing with questions and worries. What if he doesn't show up? What if something happens to Yuna while we're here? Fear whispered in her mind, but she was determined not to let anxiety take over. The love for her daughter and the hope of finding her were stronger. Jung-ho arrived shortly after, carrying a basket full of snacks and drinks. "I'm here. What did I miss?" he said, trying to ease the tension with a smile. "We're just waiting for people to start arriving. I'm still nervous about this idea. What if he doesn't come?" Sujin replied, the concern evident in her tone. "Let's stay alert. If he's really here, we can see how he acts. And don't forget, we're in this together," Jung-ho assured, holding her hand for a moment. "If he shows up, we won't be alone." As the park filled with children and families, the atmosphere began to change. Laughter and play echoed through the air, and Sujin started to relax a little. "Look, even the toys seem more lively with all this excitement," she said, smiling, as she saw children running to the slide. However, her joy was interrupted when she spotted a familiar shadow. Across the park, a man in a dark jacket was watching. Sujin's heart raced. "Jung-ho! That's him," she whispered, pointing discreetly. Jung-ho turned slowly, his expression becoming serious. "Let's stay near the entrance. We need to know if he's really watching," he said, pulling Sujin toward a group of parents who were distracted with their children. The man began to move slowly, and Sujin felt a mix of fear and determination. He seemed hesitant, as if he were struggling against his own urge to approach. "What should we do?" Sujin asked, tension growing. "Let's stay close and see if he approaches any child. We need to make sure he is who we think he is," Jung-ho replied, keeping his eyes fixed on the man. The man finally began to approach a group of children who were playing ball. Anguish took hold of Sujin. "What is he doing? He can't get close to them," she murmured. "Stay calm. I'll approach him and confront him. If he tries anything, we'll intervene," Jung-ho said, his voice firm and resolute. Sujin nodded, though fear still consumed her. As Jung-ho approached the man, Sujin felt her heart in her throat. The tension was palpable, and she could hardly breathe. The park, once filled with laughter, now felt like a silent battlefield, where every movement could change everything. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Jung-ho asked, his voice resonating with authority. The man stopped and turned, surprised. Jung-ho's eyes were like arrows, focused and determined. I was just observing," the man replied, his gaze evasive. "Observing what? You're scaring children. Don't come here again," Jung-ho retorted, his tone intense and challenging. The tension in the air was unbearable. Sujin began to move toward them, but before she could reach Jung-ho, the man abruptly turned and started running. "He's fleeing!" Sujin shouted, panic taking over. "Let's go after him." Jung-ho didn't hesitate, and the two began to chase the man, crossing the park toward the exit. Adrenaline pumped through their veins as the man led them down a side street. Sujin felt her legs burn, but the thought of losing this opportunity motivated her to keep going. "Where is he going?" Jung-ho asked, breathing heavily as they followed closely. The man turned a corner, and for a moment, it seemed they had lost him. But Soo-jin spotted a service door between two buildings. "There! He went into that door!" she yelled, pointing. The two stopped, breathing heavily as they looked at the door. Fear and determination mingled. "What now?" Jung-ho asked, his expression worried. "We have to go in. We can't let him escape again," Soo-jin replied, her heart racing. As they prepared to enter, the tension was at its peak. What they would discover inside could change everything. With racing hearts, Soo-jin and Jung-ho pushed the service door, which creaked open with a sharp sound. Darkness enveloped them, and they hesitated for a moment, exchanging glances filled with uncertainty and courage. The decision to move forward was made. They couldn't let the man escape without understanding his connection to Yuna. The room was messy, filled with stacked boxes and abandoned materials. The air was thick with the smell of dust and mold. They heard a noise coming from the back of the room. "It's coming from him," Jung-ho whispered, gesturing for Soo-jin to follow. With careful steps, they advanced, hearing the sound of hurried breathing. "What do you want from me?" The man's voice echoed in the dim light, tense and defensive. "We are here to understand why you were watching the children. Especially my daughter, Yuna," Soo-jin shouted, her tone filled with emotion and determination. "If you know her, you need to tell us the truth. I'm not a danger. I just wanted to—" "I can't talk here," the man replied, visibly agitated. "Please, you need to listen to me. Yuna, she's in danger." The statement hit like a blow. Soo-jin felt the ground shake beneath her feet. "What do you know about Yuna?" Her voice came out in a whisper, struggling to maintain composure. "I'm June, a friend of her mother's. She never wanted you to know about me, but I'm the only connection you have to your past. And Yuna, she's being followed. You need to act fast," he said, his voice low but filled with urgency. "How do you know my daughter? And why didn't you come to me before?" Soo-jin asked, confusion and distrust overtaking her. "What's going on?" "I was trying to protect her. Your mother was a strong woman, but there were people who wanted to hurt her. And now they are after Yuna too. I didn't know you were in danger until now," June explained, his eyes filled with pain and regret. Jung-ho stepped forward, deciding that the situation couldn't continue like this. "Why should we believe you? You were hiding, watching, and now you show up with this story? Because I have nothing to gain by lying. I just want to protect you and your daughter," June replied, his voice now calmer, almost pleading. Soo-jin remembered how her mother always talked about choices. "If you're telling the truth, why didn't you come sooner? What happened to her?" she asked, searching for answers that could make sense. June sighed deeply. "She got into trouble with dangerous people, and I was unable to help her in time. I loved her and did what I could, but I wasn't strong enough. When she disappeared, I became her secret guardian, and now Yuna is being hunted because of something that happened in the past," he explained. The revelation was a blow. Soo-jin felt a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. "Why didn't you come after me? You could have helped me. I didn't want you to be in danger." I watched her from afar, waiting for the right moment to approach. "But now, we don't have any more time. We need to get out of here and go to a safe place," June insisted, his penetrating eyes showing a sincerity that Soo-jin couldn't ignore. "What if you're lying? What if you're the real danger?" Jung-ho questioned, still skeptical. "If you don't trust me, then we can't do anything. But I need you to believe me. If not for me, Then for Yuna, if she's found by those who are pursuing her, there will be no way to protect her, Jun said, his tone filled with desperation. Sujin looked into Jun's eyes, seeing the truth and concern. She felt it was time to take a risk. All right, let's get out of here and discuss what to do. But if you try anything, I won't hesitate to defend myself, she said, her voice firm. With a nod, Jun led the way to the exit, with Sujin and Young-ho following closely behind. As they crossed the room, Sujin felt a new determination take over her. Her life, her daughter, everything she loved was at stake. As they left the building, the sun was setting, casting a golden light over the city. We need to find a safe place and discover the truth. Yuna needs us, Sujin said, her voice filled with hope. We'll do this together, Jung-ho replied, holding Sujin's hand, who looked at Jun with a mix of distrust and hope. I won't fail you again, Sujin. This is a new chance. I can't lose you and Yuna, Jun said, his voice soft but filled with palpable determination. As they walked away from the building, the future was uncertain, but love and courage were their weapons, and Sujin knew she was not alone in this fight. The road ahead might be difficult, but together, mother and daughter would face any challenge.